Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back for another positive talk. Hopefully, you all had an amazing weekend. I know that for me, I was doing a Tony Robbins event all weekend, so I met a lot of really great people, as well as saturated my mind with tons and tons of information. So I had a busy weekend and super excited to be jumping into this week because I've got a workshop that I'm launching tomorrow and tons of positive talks lined up. Schedule for the week. So super excited to be starting off one with Monday. And yeah, let's see if we can get them on. There we go.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I am so great. How are you today?
Doing well. I saw that you watched House of Dragons last night as well.
I did indeed. Yeah, my husband and I were super excited. These last few episodes have been really fun.
Yeah.
I read something really funny. It seemed like this season was like a 8 episode promotion for season 3, but I enjoy it. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin, my partner, he did a lot of research beforehand. So, like, he was sitting there and he was like telling me bits and pieces before things would happen. And I was like, you're not allowed to watch TikTok or anything beforehand. But
Right, right.
super excited about next season, too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I will let you introduce yourself so people know who you are, and then we can kind
Awesome.
of dive into the conversation.
Great. Well, thanks again for having me. Hello everyone. My name is Zach Bowles. I'm the co-owner and co-founder of Gay Man Thriving, an organization designed to help gay men find love. My husband and I created this organization almost 7 years ago now, really with the mission of really empowering gay men to help them eradicate this loneliness epidemic that we face as a community more likely to be single than any other social group. Gay men really have a lot of unique struggles and challenges, and together we've really teamed up to help, like I said, eradicate that epidemic and help gay men feel more equipped and empowered to be their own matchmakers, to find love and have the fulfilling connection that I share with my partner.
I love that. And you shared with me in our chat a percentage of like 40%
Oh,
or
it's
it
actually
was
much higher.
it was 60
It's
in their
nearly
40.
60.
Okay.
Yeah, nearly 60% of gay men over the age of 45 are single. And it's a really startling statistic that so many gay men fall into. And there's a lot of factors for this,
Yeah.
and we're all in different stages, but yeah, really helping to demolish that horrible statistic is really one of my really I feel like other than living my life and being happy and fulfilled and complete as an individual, my life purpose is to help gay men find love.
I love that. And the interesting thing is, when I first came out and was in a relationship, I had met someone pretty quickly. And a lot of my friends in the community were talking about how hard it was to find a relationship. And because for me, my first like experience diving into having a relationship was so quick, I would just kind of sit there and I'm like, come on, y'all, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
And then that relationship ultimately did not work out, and I kind of dove back into the pool of dating. And of course, when I first started dating, there weren't apps out so much. Facebook had just come out. And I kind of met my partner through a Facebook group. But then coming out of a relationship and diving into the world of where we now have tons of dating apps and all of those things, it proves to be a lot harder on that journey. And I definitely kind of started to have my awakening to how hard it can be to find a relationship, especially within our community. I always like to say, like, certain things are not just specific to our community, but then there are also some things that are very specific to ours, even within relationships. I think that there are struggles that gay men specifically do struggle with that other people would not have to face. But I'm super excited to hear about what you all are doing and some of the information that you've got, because I think my audience is probably falling into that age group or part of that age group. So I'm definitely interested to hear your perspective on things.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so excited to chat today. My desire is to really share a combination of what is, in fact, unique to gay men and LGBTQ dating, but a lot of the things that I teach are actually universal concepts. Energy is universal. We're energetic beings in an energetic world, and I love what you share about positive vibes and positive energy. So yeah, I find that the things that I teach deep down are very universal tools that are beneficial for any cultural group, any gender, any race, any age, any sex, any other way of identifying. But yeah, there's a lot of unique things that we as gay men specifically struggle with. I feel it really starts from, from childhood. If you are anything like me, you grew up, realizing from a really early age that there's something a little different about me. And I know this can be said for anyone across the board as we, all from an early age start developing that inner critic, that voice in our head that tells us in one way or another we're not good enough, that we learn the first moments we feel left out or judged or shamed in any way, we start to learn, oh, this is okay and this isn't okay. And I know for me, when I started recognizing how different I was than other boys and girls my age, it just created so much internal shame. I so badly wanted to fit in, and I so badly wanted to be like everybody else. And I learned really quickly, based on all of the negative reinforcement I would get from peers and teachers, coaches, not life coaches, but like sports coaches, even family members, when I would be called, names, it really taught me I have to be a certain way to be accepted. And at that time, at that young age, it feels like to survive in this world, we have to be different. And one thing that a lot of gay men, I think, experience, especially over the age of like 35, 40, things are changing. Fortunately, times are changing. And I love there's so much more neutrality and acceptance that's really emerging in culture today, especially in more advanced civilizations. But I know for many of us, those core wounds that we learn from a really early age, they don't go away when we come out of the closet. They don't go away when we march in a pride parade, or they don't go away when we, have sex with, as me as a gay man, they didn't go away when I started having sex with guys. I, felt more comfortable being myself, but at the same time, all of those learned behaviors that made me feel like I had to pretend to be something different, those didn't go away.
Yeah, I I 100% agree with you there, because I think that for me personally, there was a long journey of healing, and there was a time where I felt like, oh, I came out, so my problems are all gone.
Right.
And the more I deep dove into, and I mean, relationships definitely taught me that there were things that still needed a lot of work, because there were a lot of triggers that came up in my relationships. And it's weird because when you come out, you're moving towards a more authentic version of yourself. But one thing I learned was I spent so much time as a young person developing facades or wearing masks and being celebrated for those masks,
Yes.
that coming to a more authentic version of myself, there was a lot of need for validation, because um, I I was removing parts of myself that were hiding the vulnerable parts of me, and there can be a lot of judgmental people. There's a lot of trauma and wounded people in our community,
Yeah.
and unmasking yourself and sharing your vulnerable self to the community can sometimes be just as damaging, because hurt people can hurt people.
Yes.
So I, on my journey, there was definitely a lot of feeling like I escaped one group of people that were causing trauma and jumped into a new pool of people creating trauma, not so much out of wanting to do it, but just also not being in a healed space. And unfortunately, when you're walking around with trauma, you can cause other people to experience it as well.
Indeed, indeed. Well said. And thanks for sharing so vulnerably and beautifully your journey. Yeah, I can relate so much to that masking up. And it just shape shifted from one group to another. And my way of masking and coping with that self-doubt and insecurity was definitely drugs and alcohol. Another thing our community, really, really struggles with. Addiction is so prevalent in the queer community. And I definitely faced that for a long time. It was like, and that was my coping mechanism as a teenager and, in high school and college before I came out was, I finally would feel popular and feel accepted when I started drinking and using because I wasn't so afraid. I wasn't so overly concerned about what everybody was thinking about me. And so my coping was numbing and just really sedating myself so that I could feel, fun and popular. And then I got, lots of, it started out lots of positive reinforcement. Even before I came out, it was like all of a sudden, instead of this quiet kid in the back of the room, not wanting any attention because I was so afraid it would turn into bad attention, suddenly I was, jumping out of my comfort zone with all the liquid lubricant of alcohol and drugs. And yeah, it really, really, I guess, and after coming out, it was the same thing. I would see the guys that I was really attracted to. I would see the groups of people I would want to be a part of. And I still had so much doubt and so much insecurity, no matter, how much I was exercising, no matter how much I felt like I looked the part, because so much was, emphasized about physical appearance. That was a way I received a lot of praise and validation growing up. It seemed like everything was okay as long as I was the handsome little boy. And so that became a big part of my self-worth, a really big part of my self-worth. And after coming out and yeah, using drugs and alcohol to try to feel popular and feel accepted, it was like I couldn't really experience intimacy unless I was intoxicated because I was so in my head and so worried and so insecure despite masking up and like acting like the confident guy. I was the, the stripper and the go-go dancer and the party boy, the fuck boy. Sorry, on Instagram. But yeah, it was a dark time. It was like people would have thought I was a really confident person, but in fact, I had so much insecurity and so much self-doubt. It was just eating me alive, and that's what led to, a really, really dark rock bottom for me. On my 20s, I just got, DUI after DUI, so much jail time, rehab, halfway house. And that's when I found out that I was HIV positive, that had already progressed to AIDS when I was 31. And I really thought my life was over. I really thought all my good years were behind me and that I didn't have anything to look forward to. And I had so many judgments. This is another thing that so many gay men struggle with is the HIV stigma. I had that because I wasn't educated. And so when I was simultaneously diagnosed as HIV positive with AIDS, when I was living in the halfway house after jail and rehab, I didn't think anyone that would ever love me, anyone would ever want to date me, anyone would ever, I just thought my life was over. But somehow, some way, and I hadn't done any type of coaching or personal development. I actually was hospitalized when I was diagnosed because it progressed so bad and I didn't know that's what I had. But I remember laying in the hospital bed after, them just running test after test, trying to see what else was causing basically all of my immune system to shut down, on top of, my diagnosis. I just remember laying there and just deciding like so much this is out of my control. And I just knew somehow like my mindset and my attitude was like the only thing that could help me persevere in that situation. And I made a solemn oath to myself that I would not be defined by this, that I would find a way forward. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. I didn't know how, but I just something inside of me kind of clicked. I remember walking around the hospital like with IVs and stuff dripping. I had lost like 20, I was like a skeleton and my skin was all scaly, my hair fell out. I just remember walking around the hospital just like smiling at everybody, just trying to like kind of at that time almost force a positivity. But that's what I think really kind of initiated like a change in me, hitting that like low rock bottom. Just that was when I just really knew it was up to me to decide where I went from there. And you know, and I did all the things. Fortunately, medications really advanced, even 10, 11 years ago when I was diagnosed. But I was able to restore my health back pretty quickly. Within a year, I was undetectable and feeling healthy again, kind of finding my way. But man, dating was tough. I remember being on the dating apps and stuff. I had decided I was going to find love again, but I just remember so many people on the dating apps just calling me broken and dirty and damaged goods because I was upfront about my HIV status. And people even told me I should kill myself. It was really hard. But looking back, I think it's similar to what you said. It's hurt people, you know? And I remember when I was a messy, drunk, you know, party boy, I hurt a lot of people. I led a lot of people on. I had so many one night stands and no telling what I would say to these people to get them to go to bed with me. So who knows how many people like, saw me on the apps and maybe they were people that I had, you know, done something to in the past. Who knows? But yeah, it was a interesting time. But somehow I found a confidence within myself beyond my physical appearance, beyond you know all the things that I thought mattered the most, and that was what really kind of started my journey towards this type of work that I do today. And a few like a year later met my husband, and it was actually my energy that attracted him to me, not what I thought was all of my assets, my appearance and my body and all the stuff that I put so much value in. I actually wasn't even his physical type when we met. I was this like scrawny like you know older guy, and he felt so great when he was with me. That's what really drew him to me was my energy, and that's kind of what we, you know, eventually got together and started dating and built this organization on is this incredible force that really draws people to us and also pushes people away. It's so much more than how we look or how much money we make or our social status or any of those things. It's about our core energy, and that's really the foundation of the teaching that I do in my work. It's called energetic attraction, and it's a really powerful force. I just talked a lot, so I'm going to pause there.
No, I absolutely love it. And thank you for sharing your story. And I know that the age group that you talked about when it comes to being single, that those people are early 80s going into the 70s, 60s, 50s. Those people, if you look at those age groups and when it came to like the AIDS epidemic, and because that kind of was very much very well broadcasted in the 80s, and someone had shared with me like the messaging that was being put out around calling it the gay cancer, and very heavily noted that it was the gay community that was spreading it. Like you think about that messaging existing and how far we've come today from healing from the fear created from that messaging, because it was pretty much a death sentence at that time. And so many people were just pretty much told, your country doesn't care about you, people don't care about you. So for you to kind of come out of that and also have all these people that have been hit with that messaging, I was looking at it and just like people were wearing face masks. My grandfather was a doctor in the hospital here in Virginia, and he was one of the only doctors that refused to like wear the whole hazmat suit
Wow.
around people who were struggling, because he said that it made people feel less human. And he won a couple of awards here in Virginia for it. And so when I came out to my grandfather, like he went through that, he saw the patients at the hospital. So for me, when I came out to him at the age of 18, he scared me to death.
Like
He
that.
terrified me to the point where I was just like, I don't even know if I want to have sex, just because that was the message I was being given. He shared his horror stories from being a doctor during that period.
Wow.
And I know that for me, there was a journey of connecting with people because I moved away from Virginia and started connecting with people in the LGBT community, learning to accept myself, but also finding that the gay community, there was a lot of very welcoming people. But I was raised with Christian values, and with that came a very judgmental mindset. And I had to kind of navigate through that and start seeing people as people and not allowing preconceived judgments to kind of fall into it. Because early on in my relationships, if anything went wrong, it was God showing me that this was not what I was supposed to be doing. It was God punishing me, telling me that you're
Oh,
not supposed to be with a man, you're supposed to be with a woman. And so like there was so much weight on my journey that it took a lot of drag queens. It took a lot of people of the trans community, people who were older than me that had a lot more self love and compassion for the community to kind of help heal me, because there was more more than just the Christian trauma. There was trauma around pretty much my mindset completely around our community as a whole.
yeah.
But I ran across a lot of different people who came out to me as HIV positive, and it took a lot of conversations for me to kind of understand. And that's why I think it's so important for conversations like these to be had, because you don't know what horror stories people have been told. Usually, I mean, it's definitely a lot more in the messaging now. I see it pop up a lot. I know it's algorithm based, so I might be seeing it a little bit more because I talk about it and search it.
Mhm.
But I also worked in the state of Virginia as a prep coordinator,
Wow.
uh, and got to kind of help Virginia move in that direction for a little bit before the funding unfortunately got cut
Mm.
during the 2016 to 2020 time period.
Yeah.
But I think that it's really important to kind of take notice of that as well when it comes to the equation of the age group of the community that is struggling to find connection, as well as ageism when it comes to
Right.
the LGBT community, because I'm 36 this year. I will be 36 this year. And the amount of messages that I've started to get now where the younger people have a very negative opinion of anyone who is older than like 22 is
Yeah.
very interesting. So when it comes to thinking of the AIDS epidemic, we're putting this age group here as a huge percentage of single people. Um, that population and theirs going on down to the 50s, like a lot of them were wiped out by the lack of knowledge of how HIV could be treated or handled. So it's like it's a very interesting topic to like dive into because there's so many intricate pieces to it and it's such a complex like space, but it's definitely interesting to kind of hear perspectives from people who have kind of dealt with it, because I definitely had those thoughts of like, if I met someone and fell in love with them and they told me I was HIV positive, like what would my journey be? I would want to be loving and accepting, but like that fear was so ingrained in me that I had to really educate myself first before I could come to realize like my health wouldn't be at risk if me and my partner took all the precautions and educated ourselves and were smart about it. But that requires a lot of empathy, a lot of understanding, a lot of education for
Yeah.
yourself. And people who do test positive, that that is part of the journey that you have to take, is creating that space for people to educate themselves, and that's not always what people are wanting to do.
Oh, it's so true. And thank you so much for sharing the story about your grandfather. It sounds like he was a real pioneer, and I'm grateful for his compassion and kindness and service. It's really beautiful. I know I work with a lot of gay men in their 50s, 60s, and 70s who experience still, or we've worked on it together, but came to me with a lot of trauma from growing up in that time period, seeing all of their friends dying, feeling so afraid, and just just that message of just who I am and who I love, like, however we can interpret it as something from the universe or God or higher power, or just continuing to reinforce already that internalized, self-doubt and judgment and shame that a lot of us, gay men carry with us, whether it's conscious or subconscious. And there's a lot of healing to be done still for our community, even at this time where there's so much science and medical advancement that, for me, being an HIV positive man, it's not something that I take for granted or take lightly, but I live a completely normal life, with one pill a day, and I feel healthier and stronger than I ever have in my whole life, and I enjoy an incredible sex life with my husband, who is HIV negative. Being undetectable really helps me, and I have to stay on top of my medication and take good care of myself, but that's kind of a non-negotiable for me. And I'm so grateful because, yeah, I remember, dating after being diagnosed, and I told you a little bit about kind of some of the horror stories on the dating apps and how cruel some people were, and how judgmental some people could be. And yeah, I remember just, wanting to be upfront about it right away, because it hurt so bad when I would form a connection with someone and then feel rejected by them when I did reveal my status, which happened multiple times. And it was just, some people were completely okay with it, like it was no big deal, and others, it was just a complete deal breaker. And I remember forming this amazing connection with my husband. We actually met in 2016 doing volunteer work during the presidential campaign. And we became just immediate friends and built this incredible connection. And I knew there was something really special between us. And it was really scary when I told him on our first date, after our first kiss, I need to tell you something. I'm HIV positive. And I just remember just knowing that I was going to be okay no matter what he said, knowing that this doesn't define me, but knowing that I can't control what other people think or how other people react. That's not within my capabilities. But for him to look me in the eyes and say, I had a feeling you might be, because he knew I was a recovering meth addict. And yeah, he was, up to date on all of my, kind of my rock bottom situation, halfway house and all the arrests and stuff. I was volunteering for a political candidate, and I was a convicted felon. I couldn't even vote. But for him to look me in the eyes and say, it's okay, and kiss me and want to date me, it was really beautiful. And I'm so grateful that we get to have this incredible connection and really role model that, HIV negative and positive partners can have an incredible relationship. And yeah, it's been a really beautiful journey. And but there's so much, to just go back to what you were saying about the stigmas and the traumas. Yeah, I think I'm grateful that, with modern science, younger people don't really have that same type of programming, but to work with, communities that have lost so many loved ones, it really also reinforces just kind of the walls that people put up, which is really at the core, I found, to, and it's not just because of one specific topic, but just the guardedness and the fear is what I think keeps most gay men single, especially when we get a little older and feel like we don't fit in the mold of what seems to be like all the rage, or the just the stereotypical attractiveness and all that. it's really easy to fall into that, just isolating ourselves and shutting down and giving up, or just settling for hookups and not really opening ourselves up to more. Because you said something earlier that I think is really important about giving ourselves permission to be vulnerable. In my work and working with thousands of gay men all over the world, I've really found that vulnerability and authenticity are the core ingredients to connection. And what's difficult about that is when we grow up with all these core wounds and all these fears and all these doubts and all these judgments, we train ourselves to be the opposite of vulnerable. We train ourselves to do and be and say what we think other people want us to do, be, and say, instead of how we're really feeling and what we're really thinking. And I think that's a big contributing factor to why so many gay men unknowingly sabotage their love lives, because they have this deep fear of judgment and rejection and abandonment. And if we let our guards down and just open ourselves up by being vulnerable, we open ourselves up to, just anything. And a lot of people, in avoidance of that pain, they hide behind their security blankets and their comfort zones. And it does a good job blocking them from, the judgment and the rejection and the abandonment. But what I've found is it also blocks them from all the things that they're really wanting, that love and that belonging and that connection. That guardedness does a good job of blocking out all of it, but it also contributes to a lot of the loneliness epidemic that we as a culture face so much more than other social groups.
Yeah. I I've seen some people who develop very, very strong personalities to protect their vulnerable parts of themselves. And the personalities scream like, I don't care what other people think. I don't care. But the amount of conversations that I've had with people that go deeper than that, you hear that I just want to be loved. I just want that connection. And you talk to them about this mask or this act that they're putting on, and you're like, you're going to have to let that go, because people can't love you when you are, or you can't accept their love. They can love you. That's one thing I've learned, is that when it comes to others wanting to love you, if you haven't learned to love yourself, like, you can't truly understand what that means when someone loves you. Because I've met a lot of people who are very loved, but they don't feel it, because when you've got all those inauthentic parts of yourself around you, you feel like if those were to shed, that love would disappear. But when you shed it and you hear I love you for the first time, when someone does see everything about you, the
Yeah,
darkest parts of you, it's a completely different feeling. um, but even in those moments, like when you shed, it's still a process, because it's so easy to pick those things back up. um, because when you do shed them, you are in like that soft, vulnerable state
yeah,
for quite a while.
yeah,
um, because all it would take is like one piece of judgment to like hit you, and you're like, oh, putting it all back on, it's safer here.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's really important for people to understand, like, it's a journey. Like,
yeah.
it's not one coaching session and you're good, or one
Oh
therapy
no,
session and you're good.
no.
It's repetitively doing it, and also knowing sometimes in that shedding process there might be some unhealthy relationships that need to be shed as well, so that you are in a safer environment with people who are safe to be around and be vulnerable with.
Absolutely. And yeah, there's so many great things you just shared. I want to talk about each one. I'm trying to, in my mind, try to decide where to start. But yeah, really it's about being loved. It's interesting because people can be loving and compassionate and fall in love with the idea of you. But I think a reason why so many people have a hard time receiving love is because when they aren't being authentic, when they aren't hiding and guarding and protecting and masking, they see that people are sending them love and affection, but they know and they fear that, well, if they really knew who I am, if they saw me the way that I see myself, no one could possibly love me. And that's why if we can't love ourselves, it's nearly impossible to receive love. Um, and accept that other people can love us, because we believe so deeply we're not lovable, and that's really at the core of the shame and the inner critic work that I do with my clients, is really helping them, instead of pushing it down and bottling it up and pretending it's not there. We've got to learn to start running towards it, and really facing it and dismantling it, because we can have all the superficial connections in the world, but if we're experiencing this internal disconnect between who we really are and who we're showing the world, then it's exhausting, and it's so hard, and it's so deeply rooted and programmed, especially for gay men. I mean, it's like it's so hard when we believe that we're inherently bad and wrong, and we're taught that from society. I was taught that, in church. I was taught that with family members. I was taught that with my peers. It was just like, growing up in like small town Texas, and I know that I'm not unique. Like, so many of us experience this like deep societal programming that, and we all have this negativity bias. Just like you said, it's a lifelong journey. The healing process, it's not a one and done. It's not let's have this one session and it's just going to fix everything and then you're good to go. It can happen quickly, and it's all about repetition, but we've got to look at the uncomfortable things that are keeping us seeing ourselves in this negative light, because we create our reality based on what we're thinking and believing. And it's so important to have positive thoughts and positive perspectives, but we can't have like a toxic false positivity if we're still carrying all of this deep shame and all of these deep negative beliefs about ourselves and our worth and our value, because that's what will continuously get triggered even if we find ourselves in a really great relationship. That's what's going to fuel the fear and the skepticism that, why wouldn't you cheat on me? I'm not good enough. Why would you love me? And our egos want to be right. So we almost seek out evidence to prove our really horrible thoughts about ourselves are true. And that's why it's so important for us to really be able to, in a loving and kind way, and I do this in a gentle process with my clients, really begin by mastering the inner game, by clearing and releasing and chipping away at these negative thoughts and beliefs that are fueling this shame that causes us to, when we meet a guy that we really like, start overthinking and then either freeze up and shut down, which will push anybody away, or that causes us to try too hard and overcompensate. People pleasing and self-sacrificing and overgiving is so prominent amongst gay men. Most of my clients really struggle with codependency and one-sided relationships, it's not, and so many people think, I just haven't met the right guy yet. But what they don't realize is that because of all the stuff going on internally, this programming that makes them doubt themselves when they meet guys that they really like and put them on a pedestal and start behaving this way, that trying to say and do all the right things, trying to be who they think they want them to be, being extra accommodating, extra kind, extra generous, like that's going to push away the secure gay men that they really want to be with. But it's going to attract takers and narcissists and selfish guys, as they see that overgiving as an opportunity. And until they break that pattern, they will continue pushing away the really good guys that they could have an interdependent, healthy, thriving relationship with, and they'll keep attracting. And so many guys think they just need to give up on love, or just magically wait till the right guy just pops into their life, and it doesn't work out that way. So once we really can take a look at this past programming, these these old beliefs. It's about learning the tools and skills that is a lifelong journey. I usually work with gay men, from like a 3 to 6 month period, but it's up to them to, take what they learn and continue running with it, because we all do have this negativity bias. We are all programmed for survival, and that's what's going to cause us to, be focused on the problems, focused on the challenges, focused on what could go wrong, which ultimately creates self-defeating prophecies. But when we can, really start chipping away at those doubts and those really horrible thoughts that we have about ourselves, which are all interpretations based on our experiences, and we can start to see a more broad perspective that, there's more to the story than that, and we can start really shifting our focus to more of the bigger picture. There are things about ourselves that we can't change, but if we're focused on all the perceived limitations, we're going to continue to stay stuck in these patterns. But if we can open ourselves up to broader perspectives, like, yeah, maybe I am 10 pounds heavier than I would like to be, but I am a really great guy and I do have a lot to offer. And I can find love while also wanting to, continue improving my physical health. It's not, letting our inner saboteurs make us believe we have to have all of our ducks in a row before we can find love. There's just so many challenges that gay men face, and I'm so glad that I do the work that I do to help them realize it doesn't have to be as hard as we all tend to make it. But yeah, I'll pause there.
No, I love that share. And to share a little bit about like my journey, I can remember, and I actually had this guest on as a person here on Positive Talks, but I remember reaching out to a guy on Facebook, and I needed him to tell me that someone that looked like him would ever date someone like me, like because I was living in this self-doubt, and I was like seeking validation from people around me because I didn't think I was lovable. And it was interesting because in the early phase of dating, when I got out of my first relationship, I was attracting a lot of narcissists, a lot of people who saw me as a people pleaser, a person that would do whatever it took to keep them happy because I lacked so much confidence that I was an easy target. And when I started gaining confidence and self identity, I realized that there were so much less people approaching me. And I
Yeah,
was like, what is wrong? Like, I am like healing myself and less people are interested. But then a shift started happening where people around me, my identity and my being comfort in like my own skin started making other people feel less comfortable in their own skin because they weren't feeling connected to themselves as I was. And I was this person who really cared about people, and to know them being around me made them feel icky about themselves hurt
mm,
me to where I was like, okay, I can't be here if every conversation is you praising me while destroying yourself in the same sentence.
yeah,
Like saying something really nice about me and then something really negative about yourself. And I was like going through this process of like, that used to be me. Like,
yeah,
I used to look so highly, like you were saying, putting someone up on a pedestal, thinking, oh my God, I'm the luckiest person in the world that they're allowing me to be in their presence.
right,
And it was such a toxic way that when we had to part ways, I felt like my whole identity walked out the door with them. And then as I started to kind of form my own identity, I started to, if someone didn't fit, it was, I'm a great person, he's a great person, we just didn't fit.
yeah,
And this person walked out, and there was no hard feelings. It was just
right,
kind of sucks that it didn't keep going, but I'm still whole at the end of this.
yeah,
And jumping into a relationship that I'm in now, where when I started, I was whole. Like I didn't need the relationship. I didn't feel like having this person in my life meant that it completed something. It was
right,
just nice to have. a person in my life that I could share things with and do things with. And it's such an interesting journey that you go through, because even now, I try so hard to exist for people who are still on that journey of connecting to themselves and loving themselves fully. But sometimes I have to let people go because it's almost more damaging to them to be around someone that they constantly compare themselves to,
Yeah.
or constantly destroy themselves because if I was more like you, if I was you,
Mm.
even like the people who create like fake profiles, and I had some friends that did this, where they take an attractive person from the internet and use their pictures and be like, see, people respond to them. Look how they're talking. I can barely get anyone to message me when I put my picture up,
Mhm.
but I
Yeah.
use this person and tons of people want to talk to them. They talk to them this way. And I'm like, oh no, don't. That's a path you do not want to take. That can be so damaging to your own like self-worth,
Yeah.
because you're wearing someone else's face and seeing how the world treats people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've gone through life looking the way that I do, and I've had positives and negatives. Like we
Yeah.
all have it. And I think it's important for your people to stay with themselves, because you don't want that experience of, if I look something like this person, I would have a better life. It can be really detrimental to your self-worth.
Oh my gosh, that is just such a self-defeating behavior. Because we find what we're looking for, and that's one thing when we have a really strong inner critic and a really like unhealthy ego. We can really be looking for, even if it's like the worst things about ourselves, like we will find the evidence that we're looking for. And that sounds like an example of someone, like almost trying to prove a point in the most self-defeating way. Like if I looked different, I would have more attention. But yeah, when we compare ourselves to other people, someone always loses, and it's such a such an awful thing that we do to ourselves. If whether we're building confidence by comparing ourselves to people that we think we're better than, or we have something that they don't, it's such a dangerous game, because if our confidence is built on feeling better than other people, we're always going to be able to then see other people who have, you know, someone's taller, someone's smarter, someone's funnier, someone gets more likes on social media, someone is more successful. We're always going to be able to see other people that have something we don't. And then we're just really building confidence on very shaky ground. That's why it's so important for us to be able to really honor and celebrate what makes us unique. Like there's not another version of you on this planet, or me, or anyone else watching this, anyone else in the world. It's so important for us to, I like to describe it as really nurturing and cultivating and really putting energy into our own unique flavor of who we are, and really embodying our unique energetic attraction, because it looks different for everyone. But when we can, you know, be really happy for the taller, more hung, more successful, more whatever people, but not make them better than us or us less than, or vice versa, then we can just really start really stepping more into our power and our light, and sharing our unique flavor, our unique genius with the world. And it sounds like, because we don't have the power to make anybody else feel anything. It's each individual's responsibility, but we can influence and impact others. And what you were describing earlier about kind of when it's not an energetic match, it's so beautiful that you were able to really step into your unique energetic attraction and step into a higher frequency. And you'll notice that when we do this, we if we fell into the old people pleasing, self-sabotaging behaviors before, where which is rooted in the self-doubt and insecurity, and then feeling like we have to overcompensate and try too hard, that's going to be an energetic match for the narcissists and the selfish guys and the takers, who are seeing the opportunity in our overgiving nature. And it's not about just meeting the right guy when we're exuding that behavior. Like, we are a perfect energetic match for those types of people when we're in that space. But it sounds like you did a lot of healing and inner work to really, cultivate your identity, your unique flavor, really find value and worth in who you are as an individual. And you'll notice when that happens, and when you're feeling solid in who you are, then you will start repelling the people that are in it, for what they can get out of it. The one-sidedness, the codependency. It just, you naturally start repelling those types of people, or those types of energetic patterns within people. And you also start attracting more of the secure, empowered, like, people who identify as whole and complete individuals. And then instead of having this codependent one-sidedness, where one's giving, the other's taking, and then you're giving, 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 they're taking, 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 until it's not sustainable. It's never sustainable, but till it eventually blows up. You're attracting, more of that interdependence, where we get to really team up together and partner together, but there's not a need. Codependence is rooted in, I need you to need me, or, I need what you can do for me. It's on either side of the spectrum. But when we're feeling really solid in who we are, when we're celebrating our unique flavor and accepting ourselves and loving ourselves, while also recognizing that none of us are perfect, but celebrating our perfect imperfection, we can really stop focusing on these comparison games and this imaginary hierarchy of who's in my league, who's out of my league. And I mean, it's so beautiful. I love when I work with gay men and they reach this stage when that light just kind of shows up in their eyes, when they see how hard they've been making it for themselves and how easy it really is to just step into and embody who they really are once they chip away at all that old programming, and once they align their actions and behaviors with what they really want, and they're really keeping their eye on the prize. It's such a beautiful thing to see them, describe what you're describing, experiencing in your relationship today, what I experience in my relationship with my husband, which is knowing that I don't need him to be happy. I don't need him to be fulfilled or complete. He's who I choose to, be my sexual partner and my life partner and my companion. And I love that we're choosing each other. It's sure fun and exciting and thrilling to have a partner in life, but it's when I think that I won't be okay without him, or when I think that I need him, that's when all the old patterns can start to creep back in. And that's what really causes relationships to fail. But it's a beautiful journey. I really appreciate you sharing so beautifully, describing because I work in core energy. It's really the foundation. And what you're describing is being in there's all these energy levels that I teach my clients. You're really describing a beautiful level 5 win-win relationship, where we can't force it. It's in past relationships, you were with this other whole complete person, but you're recognizing you weren't doing the same dance. It doesn't make anybody good or bad or right or wrong. It's just not a win-win situation. And so you're both winning by not trying to force this relationship. And it sounds like in your current relationship, you're both winning by choosing to be a team and be together.
Yeah. And I think it's beautiful when you stop jumping into the game of comparison, or jumping into the journey of thinking anyone is in competition. You said a second ago, when it came to there is no other you out in the world. You can only be you. And on my journey of doing my positive talks and bringing guests from all different backgrounds onto my platform, there have been people that have brought up conversations of, aren't you worried of bringing someone on that's doing the exact same thing that you're doing? And I was like, no, because I do it my way and they're going to do it their way. We're in no way competing with each other. And if I can connect with other people that are doing the same thing, it makes me feel like, okay, I'm over here on this side of the earth doing my thing, helping, because there are so many people that need help. And you're going to be on your side, and they're going to be over here. And for a while, I was doing so much of it on my own. And there's a lot of people that need help. There's a lot of stuff out there that needs fixing. There's a lot of problems that need to be solved. And I was sitting there just thinking I had to do all of it. But the more people I've gotten connected with, I'm like, you know what? I can relax because when I'm sleeping, there's someone else doing
Yeah.
work somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I try to, because I just recently graduated from the Jay Shetty program and I've met lots of new coaches.
Mm.
And there's a lot of people still in that mindset of, I can't share too much because that's my information. I can't align myself with them because they're the same niche that I'm in. And
Mm.
if I promote them on my page, their clients or my clients will find them, and that's not good.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I think I've evolved past that mindset to
Yeah.
where I'm excited to share spaces with anyone because I know my core values well enough to where if you said in 30 minutes you're going to go in front of a stage of 5,000 people, what are you going to talk about? I'm like, I got it. Let's go.
I love that.
Whereas before, like, there would be a lot of fear there, but that was because I wanted the environment to tell me who I needed to be in the environment to be accepted. Where now I've grown and said, no matter what environment you put me in, my core values, who I am, my identity is going to show up because I am confident in that identity of myself. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people don't realize because I've had a lot of people, well, what do you want to eat? What do you think we should do? Like they need me to validate or give them information. And I'm like, I'm asking you, like, what do you want? And I think that that's part of like the healing process is I don't want you to go see a movie if you don't want to see it. Like, tell
Yeah.
me I'm not into war and action movies. I'd much rather watch like a rom com. I don't want you to watch a 2 hour movie and hate the whole experience. But some people who have not confirmed their identity and are comfortable with saying, that's just not me, they put themselves in positions where they have to quickly mold, and it's hard to hold any
Mm.
level of confidence when you
Yeah.
have to transform into a different person in every environment you walk into.
Right, right. And and it's like if people are falling in love with the mask that you're wearing, the person you're pretending to be, like what happens when you take off the mask and they see who you really are? It's a disservice to you both. And this is really, what's at the core and really at the final stages of the work that I do with my clients is really teaching them how to, once they've really built that solid foundation of self-love and self-trust and like stepping into their uniqueness and aligning their actions and behaviors. It's the fun part, like talking about the communication skills and courageous communication is what I like to call it. It's where you're, fearlessly, like, and of course, coming from like a line, like a kind, loving place, but, you know, articulating like your wants, your needs, your desires, your preferences, just not pretending to like the movies just because the other person does, or the sport or the activity or the hobby, but not pretending it, and being curious about why they're into it, but really cultivating like conversations around joy and interest is what really helps get us out of like the small talk, like the back and forth never ending messages that so many gay men complain about, when we can really step into cultivating joy like in our conversations. We have to know what brings us joy, and we have to be willing to share that even if we're afraid the other person might not share our interest, and then want to explore what they like. And it's okay. Like my husband and I have such different interests in so many areas, and it's fabulous because we're both our own unique individuals, and then we can come together and like share the one TV show that we both like last night watching House of Dragon, to talk about a full circle.
Yeah.
But I also really loved something else you shared about just not being afraid to, have other people on. Like, I'm really honored that you invited me to be here with you today. And, it sounds like you're really coming from an abundance mindset of just, wanting to, hear other people's perspectives and learn about what other people are doing. I think that's when we're stepping away from fear and scarcity and comparison, and coming from a, like a limited perspective of there's only so much pie to go around. Why would I want to show other people, what other people are doing? But I think it's really beautiful that you're wanting to, help facilitate and cultivate more positivity in the world, because there's a real shortage of it. Most of the world does operate from a very low, like, kind of, I have to fight to get what I want, everyone out for themselves, which is fueling all the comparison and the guardedness and the mistrust and the skepticism that really blocks us from having more enlightened conversations and more beautiful connections and more love and abundance in this world. So I really appreciate you having me on today. It's been really fun connecting, and yeah, thanks again for having
Yeah.
me.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and perspective, because I think that there's a lot of people that will watch this that will be able to connect with that. And I think that our conversation today gave a lot of really great perspective to people who maybe in that percentage we talked about that's struggling to find a partner due to some of the things that we talked about. So I'll give you the last couple of minutes to like let people know how they can reach out to you and possibly work with you all to kind of help themselves on that journey.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I just want to say, just to kind of, as a conclusion, to anyone watching this, no matter how old you are, no matter what you look like, no matter where you live, you are worthy of love and you can have it. I understand that we each have a lifetime of experiences that have shaped the way we see ourselves, our possibilities, the world around us. But we create our reality based on what we're thinking and believing. And the good news is about that is we each have the power to really challenge and question the thoughts and beliefs that make us think we're not worthy, or it's too late, or it's not possible. Because what you think is what you will create. Whether we think we can or we can't, we're right, as Henry Ford once said. And if you're someone who's wanting to break out of this rut of the one-sided relationships, the codependency, sitting on the sidelines, waiting for something to change, this isn't the approach that's going to help you get a different outcome. But there is a solution, and I would love to have a conversation with you about what that could look like. So if you're interested, you can visit my website at gaymanthriving.com. I also have a lot of videos on YouTube at Gay Man Thriving, with lots of helpful tips and tools and strategies. On all my videos and on my website, there's a link where you can schedule, you can apply to schedule a complimentary consultation where we'll chat and really look at your dating potential, what's getting in the way, and what needs to be addressed for you to have the outcome that you're wanting. Whether you're in your 20s or your 70s, there is a path forward. It's not too late. You are capable of having love, and I would love to explore how I can support you. Ben, thanks again so much for having me on. This was so much fun, and I'm really grateful for your platform and all that you're doing to create more positivity in the
Yeah.
world.
I'm going to keep on trying to do it. You keep doing what you're doing on your side. I will always be here supporting you. So keep going. And yeah, thank you all for coming on and listening, for those of you that have been here. And I will be posting this on my platform, and I'll tag you too so that people can find it. And I will talk to you soon.
Sounds great. Bye, guys.
Bye.